Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Active Directory series. And in the last video, we finally installed the domain controller services on our domain controller Windows Server 22 virtual machine. Now, we have finally joined a workstation to the domain, but it needs some domain users to be able to log in and interact and actually do domain things. So in this video, we are going to dive into creating some Active Directory groups and users, and then being able to play with it and hopefully expand it and make it extensible for us for later things that we do in the future. With that said, let's go ahead and dive in. I'm going to hop over to my computer screen here. I am inside of the management client that is not joined to the domain, but does have capability to remote in to our DC1 and domain controller server. Now, what I want to show you to kind of get the ball rolling, if that's all right, is one pretty cool project. Now, some of you might have seen this before, or many others just like it, but if we actually search for what is known for as a vuln AD, or a vulnerable Active Directory environment, you can probably see, hey, there's already some pretty cool stuff that you can just spin up online that will allow you to really build out your own vulnerable Active Directory environment so you can explore different attacks and different exploits and different things you can do inside of an Active Directory environment. Now, what I want to do is basically take a lot of the ideas from this code, but try and do more with it. Because honestly, it sets it all up as a script, just a simple PowerShell script, a .ps1 file that kind of stages a static, unchanging, well, I guess it chooses like random things out of however many environment variables, but I want to be able to control what potential users or things we create and expand on that so we can learn it on our own. So if anything, I want to use this as a baseline, as an opportunity to see what we could do in code and PowerShell to create this environment, but I want to be able to do more with it. The way that it goes ahead and creates users, I believe here we can go ahead and actually add AD groups, some of the functions here, or add AD users. See, they just randomly retrieve some, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's a great way to do it, and if you'd like to go ahead and use this, obviously, I encourage you to. Shout out and all kudos goes to Ways Hell, the creator, and I believe a couple others have done the very same thing. I think the mayor, Joe Helly, has created a similar thing, but I think a lot of the code base looks like it comes from this. So, hey, all kudos and credit where it is due. With that said, though, I would like to expand upon this because wouldn't it be cool if we had our Windows terminal kicking up and running, right? We could maximize that, move into our own Active Directory repository where we could be taking notes and doing things. And let's go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and make some code here. I'll create a directory for it. And let's use VS Code, or I guess code as the command to be able to run that, open it up. And let's say we had an adschema.json file. Now, you might be able to see where I'm going with this. I want to be able to define in like a configuration file, okay, what users do I have set up for this domain? And we're using our XYZ domain, but I wonder if we had some potential to be able to, from code, stage and build out an entire Active Directory environment without having to need to fire up VMs and install things and do things, whatever. Maybe you could do some Vagrant or Terraform or whatever shenanigans, Ansible, Chef, Puppet, blah, blah, blah. Anyway, what if we had, say, a username for like J Hammond, or we could set that to really anything that we'd like, or just a first name being John, and maybe a last name, of course, Hammond, right? Password, others that we could fill in here. Of course, these would be strings, and we could kind of define this to whatever we really wanted to. And what if we were able to then add more fields for other things that we might feel would be appropriate for what we carve out and create within our Active Directory environment? Now, one thing that comes with this is the idea of different groups that it might be a part of, or a user might be within, right? It'd be cool and easy to say, oh, here, John is in engineering, but what if he happens to be in other groups? Because we could change up the schema, and rather than using users, make the top level stuff be like groups, in which case we could say, oh, here's a whole list of different group names, so engineering, and that might contain like, users inside of it. But what happens if a user is in multiple different groups? You kind of copy and paste the group object or the user object multiple times. That doesn't work all that well, so maybe we do have to do it considering users as the rootmost or top level structure and schema for how we create this thing. Bear in mind, we're creating this for ourselves. I realize, hey, we might be throwing standards or whatever out the window. Forgive me. It's more so we have something to be able to rapidly create and tinker and play with our environment. We can always roll back snapshots, and that's the benefit of using virtual machines, but it'd be cool if we could rapidly put this stuff together and define it how we want. And that's why we'll build this out ourselves with a JSON configuration file and then create it as code. Does that make sense? Anyway, we should probably define all the different groups then, right? We could have groups that would be probably objects. We could have group name, and then maybe there's some other functionality in there if we wanted to add more to this object. But for the moment, okay, we're cool with just a group name. And maybe we could just simply call that name, without a doubt. Okay, with that set, all that created, here, that's a cheesy example, but I wonder if this is everything that we need. The benefit and the beneficial thing of using PowerShell is that we can pretty easily go ahead and like convert from, and that's the commandlet that we're using here, JSON. That's one that we can just go ahead and fill in. It takes an input object, which normally you might be able to pass it a string, but you could pretty easily just pipe in, hey, can I cat out or get content out of our AD schema.json? Slap it into from convert whatever JSON, and now you have all of this defined here for us. We could process this and cut through this within PowerShell, and maybe that's how we could go ahead and build or create things. But before we start diving into code and maybe trying to actually run the commands to create these users in Active Directory, let's verify we can actually get this on our domain controller first thing. We know that we can go ahead and create a new PS session given the computer name 192.168.111.155 now. And I believe we actually still need the credential. We should probably go ahead and save some credentials for us, like as a variable or something that we could easily refer to. But I guess in the meantime, we're fine with just asking for the credential real quick. Actually, before I do that, I'm sorry, I do want to save this as a variable. We can call it like DC and set that equal to this PS session, right? So let's do that. Let's get XYZ as the domain, pass in our administrator password, and fingers crossed, okay, now we have the DC variable in which we have captured this PowerShell remoting session. Yeah? Sweet. So what if we tried to copy a file? What if we tried to copy our AD schema and we bring it to session DC, and can I put like, hey, let's put it in like C Windows tasks or whatever? Does that work? Seemed like it worked. Can I now enter that PS session and then go see it? Okay, here I am on the domain controller. Can I move into C Windows tasks? And there's my file. Okay, so that's how we can simply copy and paste or really transfer files from our management machine or management client into the actual domain controller itself, where we would be able to roll back or do whatever we wanted to with snapshots, but we can still design and structure our Active Directory environment with that simple JSON configuration file. Does that make sense? Cool. Let's keep cruising. I'm going to exit out of this PowerShell session here. And now let's go ahead and create, I guess, I keep wanting to use Sublime Text, Gen AD, I suppose. And let's call that with a PowerShell script. Does that work? Easy peasy. So what we might want to do, oh yeah, do I want to install the recommended extensions for PowerShell? VS Code was just like, yo, you want to set this up? Sweet, let's do it. Is there more boilerplate function stuff that we tend to need for PowerShell scripts, or can we just go ahead and start to write some functions here? How can I take in arguments in PowerShell? Do I need to take in arguments? It would be good. Arguments to script. Yeah, how about that? Do some Googling on the fly together. Ooh, okay. So it looks like we could just use kind of an args variable, and that's like a array that will allow us to index whatever is passed. Ooh, or we could also actually take in named parameters. It looks like with the param statement. Some optional ones if we wanted to. We could also supply, I guess, mandatory in some cases. That would be handy because that way we could actually specify the JSON file that we want to be able to read or load from. We could try some of that. So parameter mandatory equals true. Oh man, that's a mess to read. Parameter. Whoa. And how did they set that up? Mandatory equals true, and then what it would happen to be called. Okay. So mandatory will force the necessity of that, and we can say JSON file. How about that? And let's go ahead and actually echo out what that JSON file value might be. Let's get back to our script here. Can I / this? Or no, okay, it's going to be requiring me to actually set the execution policy so that I can run PowerShell scripts. So we can go ahead and do that. Set execution policy remote signed. That way we can run our own code. And ooh, we have some whining complaints. Did I do something wrong? Totally. How's that supposed to be done? Parameter mandatory equals true. Name. What's the issue? Does it need... Is it like forcing spaces there? Yeah? Mandatory equals true. What is wrong with that? Hello? Parameter mandatory equals... So that doesn't need spaces, but the other crap does? It's weird. Am I like writing those the wrong way? Apparently. I'm gonna copy this code. It doesn't need the $sign. Oh, okay. I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. I'm an idiot. Everyone, please disregard. It does not matter. No one saw it. You didn't see it happen. Let's try and run this code now. Please? Yeah, okay, so now it needs the JSON file, and we can go ahead and actually specify our AD schema.json. Echoes it out, it reads it just fine. Perfect, perfect, perfect. So what we could do is actually go ahead and actually display that out, pipe it to convert from JSON, and we can set this to a variable like JSON. Pretty dumb, pretty stupid, but it works. And now we could go ahead and actually echo out JSON dot, what is it, users, right? Is that fair to say? And I suppose we should be using proper PowerShell here. We don't need to use cat or any of those shenanigans. How about this? JSON file, let's pass it as the argument. We could actually go ahead and supply our AD schema.json, and it reads it just fine. I dig it. Okay. So now we could basically create functions that allow us to, like, okay, create a user, right? Like this might be our main functionality here after it reads in the arguments. Should I bring that down? Or let's just keep cruising. Let's go ahead and build out a function, and I believe that's how you do it in PowerShell. Function, yeah. New Active Directory user, or how about just like create AD user? Does that work? Okay. So do I pass other parameters here for doing that? And we can define all those things, or should it just be a user object? Is how we could pass that in. Maybe. Let's echo that user object, and we can see if we can do for each user in, can I do that? JSON users. Can I try to run create AD user as my function with that user? And we just echo it out. Oh, missing command? What does that mean? I don't know what you're whining about. Let's just try it. No, that literally does it. Yeah. Yeah. It does it. So, okay. Small tiny thing, but can we now go back to our vuln AD and see what they do here? They, looking at this code, add type to grab a web, which is kind of weird. Oh, it looks like it's trying to generate a password with a quick and easy function. That's nice. It requires the name being passed in as first name, last name, given name being first name, surname being last name, and then the SAM account name. How do they generate that? SAM account name equals first name, last name, two lower, all dots. We could do something like that. User principal name, that's going to be the exact same that they kind of use a format string to take first name dot last name and at the global domain and account password they convert to a secure string. And then they enable the AD account. Otherwise they throw some errors, or don't throw any errors at all in that case. Okay, so let's try it. Let's go ahead and yoink this code. As much as I hate to do it, right? Let's momentarily, just so we have a visible benchmark, actually be able to see that. And I'm going to word wrap this line just so I can see what's up. And then I want to comment this out super duper quick, because basically, should we pass in the SAM account name or should we generate it? That's kind of the flexibility that we have, and that creating the schema like this, we could have whatever fields that we wanted. Maybe we don't even need a first name, last name. We could split it up as just name and have it cut by spaces. That could be what we use. Let's do that. Honestly, let's say name John Hammond. Then we don't need first name, last name. We don't need username, because it could carve that out in some strange way, right? If we took, actually, let me go back to PowerShell for a moment. If we had a string, let's say name can equal John Hammond, and let's make that a variable. If I did name 0, it retrieves just the name, and then we add name dot split. Oh, goodness. Never mind. Split on spaces and grab the second name, and then bring all this to lowercase. Let's take that whole thing to lowercase, right? Let's wrap some parentheses around that. We have J Hammond, which is a fine username. So that works just fine in my mind. I don't know about you, but that's what we could do. We have that flexibility by setting things up this way. Let's set the SAM account name to equal, how about username can just equal that, and name will equal, realistically, our user object dot name. Pull out the name from the JSON object, and then we generate a first initial last name structure for actual username. Perfect. SAM account name could basically be that. I'm just going to use the variable that way, so that way it's nice and easy, and we know what it is and what it actually is doing. But principal name could honestly be the exact same thing. I gotta be honest. I don't know why they don't lowercase that one. And they pull in a generated password, which we will go ahead and get on our own. And sure, of course, hey, you wouldn't do this in the real world, right? Because you are just writing a password out right in plain text. But this is kind of just for our learnings. We don't need to go ahead and have any output if we didn't want, or at least maybe we did want to. Totally your call. This is the benefit of us writing our script ourselves and trying to make some sense of it. New AD user is the PowerShell commandlet that will go ahead and actually go ahead and create the user in Active Directory. If you wanted to do some digging and actually see what you could do with this, that is where the documentation and the online resources come into play. You could literally supply all of these fields. And if we wanted to, we could add support for that in our JSON configuration file. That is, again, the absolute benefit of doing this. With that said, let's get back to it. We know the name we will pass in. And I guess we could actually carve out first name and last name. Can I do that in a quick and easy way? Can I do like first name, comma, last name equals name dot split? Does that figure that out? It looks like it does. Nice. Very nice. Okay, so we could use that structure. We could use first name, comma, last name, split naturally from the name. In which case we can use just first name cut up there and then last name. Does that make sense? We cut and split on that string, just taking by the space, first name, last name. And you could find your edge cases with, names that have like a period or something to abbreviate or shorten something. I get that, I know, but we don't need to worry about it. First name, surname, last name, SAM account name is properly passed, user principal is properly passed, and domain name is what we want to be able to retrieve. Now, the domain name is something that we should probably specify in our own schema, like the configuration file, but it also means it's going to be something that is pulled in and not necessarily known for our script. We could declare it as a global after we read this in from... Yeah, let's do that. We know we're working with xyz.com. And that structure is set for us, but now back in our actual script, can we go ahead and read in this? Does PowerShell have like a main function? I feel like just having it dangling is weird. Is that literally how it's supposed to do? Function main, entry point main. Yeah, maybe that's a little bit better. But then can we handle the global context just fine like that? What do they do in the vuln.ad script? Okay, the vuln.ad script just has a global and acts that as kind of like a PowerShell drive, even though that probably isn't the best way to represent it. But could I say that the global domain can be our JSON domain field? Yeah? So once that's done, the functions will be able to actually access it just fine. Account password can be convert to secure string of the password, passed in as plain text, and then actually enabled as an account. We don't need to use a try or catch statement anymore. We just need to actually create the AD user object. And we don't need to echo that out anymore. So honestly, that's that. That is the function that will go ahead and create this AD user for us. But we need to put him in a group, do we not? Can we add him into groups as needed? I think we should loop through groups before and create them before we create the users. Is that fair to say? Let's build another function. Create AD group. Ta-da. And let's grab a group object as a mandatory parameter. Perfect. Now, name can equal the group object's name. And then all that we need to do to create a group, as we could see from, hey, of course, our vuln AD using it as a reference, all they do is new AD group. Group scope is global, interesting. And then as needed to, we can add members to it based off of their identity, which I'm assuming is going to be their name. So let's try it. Yeah? New AD group is what we need. Name, right? And after we create the user in our create AD user function, we can do for each, I suppose, group in the user objects groups, it's add AD user group. What was that? Blah, blah. Add AD group member, and then identity being the group name and the members. Now, this is going to be kind of bad in the way that we have it right now because we aren't checking or validating if that group exists. We're just blindly trusting that we wrote and entered the correct thing for the group name and the groups that we are in as a user. Now, that could work, right? But we'll supply, obviously, our own principal name, I suppose. Or I guess username in all reality. We can just add that. And that hopefully sets it A-OK for us. Correct? Is that worthwhile? Is that doing what we think we're doing? I think it is. Granted, we need to run the loop to create those domains first. So for each group in JSON groups, we create an AD group based off of that group. And then the users we create and add the users to their own groups appropriately. We could validate and check, hey, does that group exist? Is there a way to do that? Active Directory PowerShell command. If group exists, if AD group, we can find if an Active Directory user is a member of a group using AD group member commandlet. I get that, but I want to know if a group exists. What has Stack Overflow got for me? Looks like they're doing kind of a similar thing that we're doing. Yeah. Okay, they're doing it from CSV files. That's cool. I like that a lot. Finds a disaster. Users are successfully added to the AD, and then you're only getting the error. So you can avoid the error in two ways. Try doing this recursively. Whoa. Or you could try like, get AD computer based off of that. Okay, so if that fails, if it wasn't able to find anything, then you write warning, AD computer object not found. That might be worthwhile. Should we do it? So try get AD computer, and that should be group dot name, correct? No, I mean, in this case, it's going to be an actual group string. So the name is just present there. We should probably specify that. Group name is what we are looping through for the user. So if it fails to get the AD computer object, well, wait. AD computer? No. I want to get AD group. That's got to be a thing. Let's go to our DC1 and try it. I'm just going to super quick try and log in. Saying Control Delete. Whoa. Entering the very wrong password for a moment. Cool. Get AD user as an object. Filter, let's do anything. Okay, so we have a domain admin object. We have a guest. Our Kerberos ticket granting tickets service, I think, whatever those things are. And if we could just supply that real easy to get that same output. But I want to do that for AD groups. Whoa, there are a lot of them. Could I specify identity? So here's one we know that's called group DNS update proxy. If I slap that in, that retrieves it just fine. But if I tried to say something like a does not exist group, we will get an error, which should be okay. And we actually get Active Directory commandlet, Microsoft Active Directory Management, identity not found exception. And that's exactly what we would expect. In which case, we can catch that error like we're doing. Active Directory Management, AD, identity not found. So rather than get AD computer, let's try and get AD group based off of the group name, given its identity. If we fail, then we can write a warning, whoops, group not found. In which case, we can say user name not added to group name because it does not exist. Yeah? Because we were doing this inside of a try statement, we could probably just move the actual line to add it to the group inside of the statement there, correcting our group name variable. So fingers crossed, everything that we've wanted, we have set up here. Is that fair to say? What I will go ahead and do is actually go back to our DC1, but should we revert to the snapshot? Yeah, just for the sake of, safekeeping, let's revert to snapshot. It's probably going to take a little bit of time for it to jump back on, but we know this is a fresh, newly created domain. So we could go ahead and copy over our management client code that will go ahead and create the objects as needed, and all based off of our schema. So with that, we could actually build out our schema to something that we want. Like let's do employees for groups, I suppose. And let's use Alice. And her last name will be Lice. Because I kind of want, their first name, last name. When they remove the last name, I want it to be Alice, like as if it's her name for her username. Does that make sense? So her password, I suppose, can be, what should her password be? I like lice. That sounds really strange. No, let's not do that one. Let's keep it as anything for the time being. Well, it probably has some password complexity, and we could play with if we want to turn that off or not in a moment. But let's set her to password 789. How about that? And let's create another user because we can do that with JSON super duper easily. Let's do Bob Ob. You guessed it right. You knew I was going for Bob Ob. And let's do password ABC in all caps. Does that work? I think so. Our AD DC1 is set up. So I think we are all set. We have our schema. We have our generator code. And we can go ahead and try to connect to this thing. So let's... Can I get PS sessions? Does that work? We still have this one, but okay, no, that is broken. So let's go ahead and create a new DC connection, which requires us to enter this PS session, 192.168.111.155. And the reason that I'm not using the domain name here is because this machine is not yet added to the domain. Bear in mind, this is just our external management client, and we're doing stuff in Windows because that's how we're doing it in this series. We should use our credential that we could simply retrieve. XYZ administrator password 123 exclamation point. Great. That is set for us. And we have DC. Did it die? I should have done new PS session. And with that said, let's create our creds object. Just so we don't have to keep doing that over and over again. I think a / will still work just fine here. That's whatever I type first. Nah, come on. You're really upset about that? All right, so now we have our credentials. Nice and easy. So our DC command can just be a new PS session rather than entering it, and we can pass in our creds credentials. Nice and easy. Do we have our controller set up? Yep. Okay, cool. So that is set for us. Let's go ahead and copy item. I think we can just use copy, can we not? I think that's, or CP in all reality. That's an alias in PowerShell. So let's copy our schema over to session the domain controller in C Windows tasks. That seemed to work. And let's copy our gen AD PS1 script over into C Windows tasks. Okay, fingers crossed. Now let's get into the domain controller. And here we are. I have that new prefix that I'm in that host. In tasks, as we moved it onto the server, we have our AD schema and our actual generator script. So let's check out our AD schema. Looks like that is set the way that we would like. And let's see if we'll be able to parse it just fine by running our gen AD script. It needs our JSON file to be supplied. So let's use our AD schema.json and let's see if we get any errors. No errors. No errors. We've created the employees group, correct? Let's check. Let's get AD group. Filter, star, literally anything. Okay, we now have our employees group that's been created. We see it there. And let's get AD user. Now remember, when we ran this just previously, we had the admin user, the guest user, and the Kerberos TGT user. Now we should have Alice and Bob, and there we go. Alice Lice and Bob Ob both added to our domain with their passwords and credentials that they can use to log in to any machine, right? Like you could log into the domain controller as Alice or Bob. And maybe folks like don't have that idea come across from them. But let's fire up the workstation super duper quick. Let me turn this guy on. So it's real and you can see it on like, an actual end user client machine, right? Our workstation that we might interact with. But don't forget, it is a domain account, which means that it can move from whatever machine to whatever machine and have the same privileges and permissions that it has. So rather than logging in as the local administrator for this box, now we can use our domain credentials and log in as Bob. Yeah? And we know he is password capital ABC. And now we get to log in. Ooh. The security database on the server does not have a computer account for this workstation trust relationship? What does that mean? Can I log in as Alice? Now she is password 789. Security database on the server does not have a computer account for this workstation trust relationship. Ooh, I'm super interested. Before we dive into that, let me show you and verify. Can we log in to a different user? Let's go ahead and say other user. Let's go to XYZ/Bob. I'll zoom in on this here. Or not. And he is using password ABC, correct? The sign-in method you're trying to use isn't allowed. For more info, contact your network administrator. Interesting. Well, I don't know if that's the shenanigans of, hey, some domain user not being allowed into the domain for... I don't know. Windows Server 2022 shenanigans? Why can we not log in on my workstation yet? Now, if I entered like the completely wrong password, that tells me it's wrong. So we know we're getting the password right. We just need to go learn what this new error is. The security database in the server does not have a computer account for this workstation trust relationship. That is a mouthful. The security database does not have a computer account. I think that's what it said. Yeah. Let's go learn. This specific error appears when a user attempts to log into the domain. This can be quite problematic because there doesn't seem to be a way to circumvent this. What? Time and date are misconfigured? Interesting. Oh, check the time and date on the client PC. Okay, so we want to go back to our workstation. Let's try and log in with a local admin. Now, I recognize that if I actually enter the credentials for the domain controller and then try and log in, it tells me that it is currently 10:30. Workstation tells me that it is currently 10:30. No, just tell me the actual time, please. Yeah. So, what's up? That is the correct time. We can make sure that it is set time automatically, if at minimum. But I think it is literally doing that. Sorry, I realize my face is in the way. Can I adjust date and time? Adjust for daylight savings time. Time zone. I am in Eastern time. I don't know if that wouldn't make sense for it to make a difference, but we're going to play with it. Hello? There we go. Now it knows the proper time. And you are setting time automatically naturally. Yeah. How do I set that for the server? Do I? Wait, set time automatically needs to be turned off? Depending on the previous settings? That seems weird. That doesn't seem right. Checking for DNS and firewall issues. Ooh, maybe we need to flush and re-register the DNS. Maybe. Or like restart one of these? That seems weird. Oh, is it because we like Oh, no. We reverted our domain after it was set up, maybe? And then this machine, I don't know, the snapshot might be getting in the way. Registered DNS is what would follow that. Yeah, and you need to be whatever. Okay. Give me a terminal. Give me a real Windows terminal, the much better one. So IP config flush DNS and then registered DNS. Come through, King. Okay. Theoretically, that's good. And verify that we are properly connected to the domain. We can try it. Get credential reset computer machine. That's weird. Okay, well, Can I get net domain? I think that's I don't think that's a real commandlet. I'm pretty sure that is a power view. So let's try and log out and do this one more time. Let's sign out. Maybe we need to rejoin to the domain or for whatever reason after we've created these accounts. Or I might be forgetting some crucial, critical thing. But we've created the users. So I'm curious what I might be doing wrong. And if I don't figure it out, we'll go back to checking the notes. You know what I mean? We'll see in past life when I might have played with this. It's taking a long time to sign out. Were there other settings here? You can verify. NetDOM reset. Weird shenanigans. Oh, okay. And then they removed themselves and disconnected the domain. Maybe that's worth it. Hey, you know what? Let's just restart the guest if it's going to make a mess like this. I'll wait for it to come back and we'll tune back in for the rest of the recording. Okay, I just used the VMware like hard reset because it was taking too long and I'm impatient. Okay, so now let's try to log in as Bob on the domain. And that still doesn't like it. So, all right, let's just do a rejoin, recreate, local admin should be A-OK. Let's see if this machine can leave the domain and join it. Is there a way to do that? I'm going to use this disconnect. Oh, yes. Disconnect. I'm curious what that is in PowerShell. Is it a remove computer? Like we did add computer in the past. Oh, and you have to restart again? Yeah, just do it, whatever. We can Google while we do that. PowerShell. Leave domain. Remove computer. Yep, totally. Remove the local computer from its domain. Interesting. It needs unjoined domain credentials passed to it. That's peculiar. But okay. We'll let him just do its thing, and we'll stand by again. Why is this taking so long? I literally, stepped away. There's another hard reset. I don't know if it's, having a problem with that. Is it going to be complaining that I'd, hard reset in the middle of that? No, local admin. Can't join as an other user at the moment because it's not joined to the domain. And now let's try and join again. We should be able to see XYZ. No. I don't want to set up a school or work account. I want to join a domain. Why are you not giving me that option anymore? I guess we'll do this the PowerShell way. Can I ping xyz.com? Yeah, okay, so it knows it. So let's add computer to, how do we do all this? Yeah, xyz administrator xyz.com. And then fingers crossed, hopefully, we will be joined to the domain. Unless it will wind. Nope. Okay, so it'll be good after I restart the computer. Shut down our T0. Will you actually restart this time? Oh, looking good. Imagine that. Okay. Now can we actually log in with our Bob or Alice user? Here we go. Other user, we're signing into XYZ. Let's try to log in as Alice, and she is using password 789. Success. Holy goodness, that took a little bit too long and was kind of a pain in dumb. I gotta be honest, I'm not quite sure why that was coming up. I hadn't seen that in the past. Granted, I was using a Windows 10 and Windows 2019 when I've kind of played with this, but we are now being able to create an Active Directory environment as we would like it with our own custom configuration file, really with the JSON object. And now note, if I try to open up Terminal and run as administrator, I can't without knowing the XYZ admin password. Like, I could try and use Alice, because let's say Alice, if I play pretend her right now and not the actual administrator, I could try and use my password, but I am not an admin and I cannot do that as Alice. I require the use of the admin password or someone with actual credentials. I could try and use the local admin, right, if I knew those credentials, or if I made this Alice user, the domain account, a local admin on this workstation. That could work, but we haven't had that needed to yet. And I think we can start to move into the new scenario where, let's say we were exploring a domain environment, and let me kind of close all this out here because I think we are winding down the video now that we have finally finished that code from our management client, learned a few things, and written some cool stuff. We should totally push the code that we're working on, because now we have a little bit more cool flexibility and power in that we can generate an AD environment based off a JSON configured structure. Yeah? WQ to exit what would be Vim here, and go ahead and push that. Cool. All right, everybody. So in this video, I know it took a little bit of time, but we have built out our own JSON configurable structure and sort of a config file for our Active Directory setup, and we can extend this and expand this to do whatever we really want. We expose only taking a name and a password for a user and then the groups that it might be in, but we can add descriptions or add any other fields that we might like and let our own code be able to rapidly create that. And then we can later automate the process of dynamically creating however many users that we want, because that's part of the fun here. And that way we can at any point restructure what our own vulnerable Active Directory instance might look like. And we got to do that in PowerShell by having the thing actually create these users for us, and maybe in the next video we'll actually write some PowerShell code to generate a whole lot of users or groups for us to mess with. And then we can get into some cool hacking. I don't know, firing up Bloodhound, firing up PowerView, and doing some of the real fun stuff. But thank you everyone for sticking with me. Thanks so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do all those YouTube algorithm things. It really helps the channel grow. It tells me that you want to keep seeing more Active Directory stuff like this, although it is something for me to learn alongside. But thanks so much, everyone. Like, comment, subscribe. You know the drill. I hope to see you in the next one. I love you. Take care. Time to stop recording. Okay, bye.